Okay, well, I'm sure that most of you have heard by now that Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury kicked off their official press tour, trading barbs with each other for the first time, face to face since the initial fight. There did appear to be some confusion with what was being reported, that there wasn't going to be a press tour. That was per Bob Arum, that they were going to promote this thing via some football games or something like that. It wasn't quite clear if this was going to be for the entire duration of the build-up, or was this just,
preliminary announcement.
Can't stress enough that when you have a shit talker the caliber of a Tyson Fury, it behooves you to put that wordsmith to good use, because he can really help sell this fight by trading barbs with Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder, who had some, little gems of his own at this press conference. Some interesting insights, some things to say.
Two different paths. One just want to survive me, I'm building for legacy. One go around and talk about he have a lineal title, something that's make-believe and fake. He come around and even have events that go 12 rounds with no belt on him, but the one that holds his pants up now. That's the only thing. He needs some type of inspiration, some type of motivation to feel like he beat me such a far wide margin that he did, when he didn't. And if so, why so many trainers? Why so many rotations? He rotated trainers like he do his draws. Everything changed. Firing, hiring. The first time around, he wanted to talk about how he was out of shape and stuff, but you did. You came in great shape the first time. Like you're supposed to. What'd you spend? 100,000 pounds? Trainers, camps, different little things? Well, I still have my old trainers. Still sat back. And still to this day, I got the same people. You don't see me firing no one. You don't see me bringing no one on if you're supposed to be such this great fighter. And I was supposed to be this guy that don't have no skills. But we see who's more concerned than the other ones. Because when you have power and nowhere around it, you can't prepare for that. You can't prepare for that.
Deontay Wilder asks, Tyson Fury is this great fighter. If he's so sure that he won the first fight, then why rotate the trainers? Why all the changes? Why the hiring and firing of people that supposedly led you to the success that you feel you had in the first fight? And a tweet from Mike Kopinger pretty much answers that question. Fury says he hired a Kronk trainer because he's looking for a knockout. Pointed out that Sugar Hill teaches how to sit on the right hand. Believes he got robbed the first time. This is thought-provoking because Tyson Fury says a lot of things, like when he said he'd fight Dillian Whyte so long as it was for the WBC Diamond Belt, or when he said that he donated all his earnings to the homeless, back there in the UK or whatever it was. He says a lot of things, and with Tyson Fury, you never really know what he's being serious about and what he's not being serious about. But when he says that he's going for the knockout, we have reason to believe that he's not just joshing, he's not just saying that to sell the fight, he's serious. Because changes are happening, changes have happened. Boots are on the ground to aid Fury in getting the knockout that he didn't get in the first fight, because at this point, Tyson Fury doesn't feel he can win on points because in his mind he already did. He was robbed of that decision. Based on the reports, based on appearances, it does appear that Tyson Fury means to go about things a different way in the rematch, that he wants to take it out of the judges' hands this time around. Tyson Fury is going as far as saying that he means to knock out Deontay Wilder as early as the first 2 rounds. I don't know how much stock you can have in those comments, you understand. Just like I don't know how much stock you can have that he masturbates 7 times a day so that he can have more testosterone. Like I said, Tyson Fury, he does say a lot of things, and it's questionable what you can and cannot take seriously. But that he means to go for the knockout, maybe not in the first 2 rounds, but overall, at some point in the fight, he's going to be looking for it. That he means to do that, oh yeah, I think that there is some credence to that. I think that there is some seriousness, some earnest effort is going to go into taking this fight out of the judges' hands to prevent all the controversy that we saw in the first fight. And that in and of itself could change the overall aesthetic, the dynamic of the rematch. Tyson Fury saying he doesn't want to be herky-jerky. He doesn't want to go for 12 rounds. He wants to wrap this thing up. He wants to wrap Wilder up. That's intriguing. That's thought-provoking. What effect could it have if Tyson Fury goes in there looking for a knockout?
Can he get it?
No, I feel that Tyson Fury won the first fight. He won the boxing match. All Deontay Wilder did was score 2 knockdowns. That's it. But scoring 2 knockdowns in a fight where, at least on my card, you lost 10 rounds, clearly. Scoring 2 knockdowns is not enough to earn you a victory or even secure you a draw. That just means you knocked the guy down 2 times. 2 10-8 rounds. But it's a 12-round fight. Tyson Fury's got what it takes. He's got the chops, the skill set, the mobility, and the dimensions to outbox Deontay Wilder. But if he goes in there looking for a knockout, well, you know what they say about looking for a knockout. You're running the risk of being knocked out in doing so.
Yeah?
Two-way street, though, isn't it? I mean, Deontay Wilder goes in there looking for a knockout all the time. But then again, most of the time he does that, he's not in there with someone as skillful as Tyson Fury. There's always an angle, usually. The risk of sounding repetitive, one must understand that while Deontay Wilder is a knockout artist, a good number of those knockouts didn't come over top-tier, world-level guys.
They didn't.
In about, 42 or 43 professional contests, he's only actually fought three top 10 fighters. That's it. Just 3. And out of the 3, he only knocked out 1. Okay? First top 10 guy that he fought that was in the top 10, ranked as a top 10 fighter in the division, in the world, of all the heavyweights. First top 10 guy that he fought was Bermane Stiverne. We all know that he beat Bermane Stiverne soundly, decisively. It's not a question of whether or not he beat him. It's a question of whether or not he knocked him out. And he didn't knock out Bermane Stiverne, not when he was a top 10 fighter. He didn't knock him out until Bermane Stiverne came back fatter and less active than he was it over a year, 2 years prior? But when Bermane Stiverne was a top 10 fighter, Wilder didn't knock him out. Tyson Fury. And we all know that Wilder thinks he knocks him out, but the reality of it is that Tyson Fury saw the 12th round, and he wasn't on shaky legs when he got up from both of those knockdowns, okay? He got up and fought back. There's another guy that Wilder didn't knock out. At best, you drew with the guy, and that's even, that's if you endorse the draw, which I don't. The only top 10 guy that Deontay Wilder knocked out was Luis Ortiz. Both times. That's the only guy. So when I say there's an angle, that there's usually an angle, you can understand what I mean. That a good number of these guys that Wilder knocked out were not the best and brightest fighters in the division. A good number of them weren't. There usually is an angle in play, whereas with Tyson Fury, it's a bit different. Tyson says he doesn't want to be herky-jerky. He doesn't want to box to a decision. But it is his boxing that I feel allowed him to not only win most of the rounds, but see the 12th. If he makes changes, drastic changes, could that have the opposite effect to where he doesn't see the 12th round? I don't know. I mean, he could decide to box, for a good portion of the fight and then decide to switch gears later on. It's possible. How does he go for the knockout without compromising the things that gave him success in the first fight? Because while he says he doesn't want to be herky-jerky, it's being herky-jerky that I think allowed him to do as well as he did in the first fight. If he abandons that and perhaps changes a bit too much, there is a possibility that he gets himself knocked down, and this time he won't get out. It's very intriguing. It is. It's very interesting. How does he change to where he can have the success he had in the first fight, but open the door for a knockout? How much does he have to compromise to do that? Very intriguing. Just in the realm of heavyweight news in regards to Deontay Wilder, we know that Dillian Whyte has once again gone on the attack. The old story of Deontay Wilder being flat-handled by Vladimir Klitschko has resurfaced as a result of Dillian Whyte's barbs. A story that I happen to believe because it's more than Dillian Whyte saying it.
Not just him.
Johnny Nelson said it a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, sometime. Johnny Nelson said as much, that Deontay Wilder was dropped several times by Vladimir Klitschko. A story that's not just corroborated by those two guys, but by James Ali Bashir.
That's something else. To be here, giving this kind of work. Because I was working the corner with him. I was working the corner with him and Deontay Wilder, And my job is to get the best out of them. So I'm saying, man, go after him, man. Fuck it. If he's the heavyweight champion, go after him and punch. So they were taking chances when they got caught. Because Deontay got dropped too. Deontay got dropped too. Vladimir dropped them both, But the fact that I was impressed by it, that they were trying to be aggressive when they got caught. When they got caught, they was trying to be aggressive. So that all comes in the learning stages of boxing,
That video is courtesy of BWMT Online. an interview conducted with James Ali Bashir. That's the same James Ali Bashir that was helping to prepare Ivana Habazin ahead of what was supposed to be the Clarissa Shields fight. I believe it was the second time out after it had been postponed. That's the same James Ali Bashir that was helping to prepare her. And this interview, courtesy of BWMT Online, predates Wilder's fight with Bermane Stiverne. This predates the first fight. This is from before Deontay Wilder became the WBC heavyweight champion. And in the video, you hear it quite plainly that James Ali Bashir attests to Deontay Wilder being flattened by Vladimir Klitschko in camp, among others. Who Klitschko flattened. He claims to have seen it. He was there, working the corner, you understand. More or less, James Ali Bashir's account of events is in keeping with what Dillian Whyte is saying here today, because Dillian Whyte claims to have seen this as well, that Deontay Wilder was getting in there, getting aggressive with Vlad, trying to bring the smoke, and he got caught. He was knocked out, clean out, off a left hook. Vladimir Klitschko, being the tactician he was, he saw that Wilder was bringing the smoke, made some subtle changes to his footwork, employed some feints, and managed to not just drop Deontay Wilder off a left hook, but put him out. He was actually twitching as a result of the left hook. This is not merely a rumor that is being passed around by word of mouth, to where the origin of the rumor is singular, that the rumor itself may be spreading like wildfire amongst a lot of people, but the origin of the rumor itself is a singular origin. This isn't a situation like that. It's not merely being passed around by word of mouth. You have several individuals attesting to have seen this, to have been there. You have James Ali Bashir, who said that he was working the corners and he saw it. You have Dillian Whyte, was in that same camp with Deontay Wilder, with Vladimir Klitschko. He claims he was roughing Vladimir up, and as a result of that, he was sent home. But, before it came to that, he saw Wilder get dropped by Vladimir Klitschko. And Johnny Nelson, he said the same thing. So
I believe it happened.
I don't doubt for a second that this happened. I don't doubt for a second that, Vladimir dropped Wilder, because in 2013, what kind of guys was Wilder fighting anyway that he would have the ring savvy for Vladimir Klitschko? I mean, even in camp, even in preparation for some other fight, or whatever it was. I mean, I can totally believe that this happened, because these things happen. These kinds of gym stories, they float around about
Damn near anyone you can think of.
a lot of different guys. How Anthony Joshua is rumored to have battered Tyson Fury in sparring, how Anthony Joshua himself is rumored to have been knocked down by Daniel Dubois in sparring. These kinds of stories are commonplace. Thus, I've not too much stock in them, except that they might explain why we never got to see Wilder fight Vladimir Klitschko. That might resolve why that never happened. That, Shelley Finkel made it
Crystal clear.
after Wilder won the WBC title that Shelley didn't think that Wilder was ready for Klitschko. He looked at Wilder as being a baby. He still looked at him like he was a prospect, and he didn't think that Wilder was ready for that fight. And those are his words, not mine. These are not my anecdotes. These are not my opinions. Those are the man's own words. The guy who handled Wilder's career and still does. It's the same Shelley Finkel, one and the same. He didn't think Wilder was ready for that fight, and I've no doubts that, what happened in sparring might be the why, might be the reason. That's the only relevance of the story that there is for me. That one, it explains Shelley Finkel's aversion to putting Wilder in there with Vladimir, and two, it explains Dillian Whyte's enthusiasm to go in there with Wilder. That, according to Dillian, it was a left hook that put Deontay Wilder out. A left hook. Dillian Whyte just so happens to have a very good left hook. That's the left hook that he put Derek Chisora out with in the rematch. A rematch that he looked to have been losing on the cards up until he landed that hook. I've no doubts that the story is real, and it explains these different layers of what's been going on in recent memory and here today. That Dillian Whyte probably still views Deontay Wilder as the same one-handed fighter that he was years ago. That if there has been improvement in Wilder's technique, or whatever it is, in his ability, it's minimal, because he's still a guy who's going out there looking to land a single punch, and that's always been his calling card. For Dillian, having seen that Vladimir put this guy out with a left hook, a punch that he himself is pretty good with, that might be the motivation for him to continually chase Deontay Wilder in spite of the obstacles, the roadblocks that not only Wilder puts up, but the WBC has put up. Dillian Whyte believes that he's the one that can do it. If he can land the left hook, the way that Vladimir landed the left hook, he feels he can beat Wilder. That's how you can explain Dillian Whyte so vigorously chasing him down.
For years now.
That image from years ago is still fresh in Dillian Whyte's mind here today. And this is how you can explain his enthusiasm to fight Deontay Wilder, where a lot of people think all he'd do is get himself knocked out. This resolves that. But as I stated earlier, sparring stories, gym stories, and what happens in the gym, it may or may not translate into what happens in the ring under the bright lights, because the intentions in both those scenarios, they are different. You know, one is preparation for what happens under the bright lights. All kinds of things can happen in camp. I said this about the very famous sparring story in regards to Canelo and Gennady Golovkin, that it's a story that's circulating, or was, like wildfire, and it probably was a sight to see. But that sparring session took place many years before their actual fight. So the state of those fighters at that time doesn't necessarily, or didn't necessarily, represent the state of them when they were supposed to be fighting each other in the, in the pro ranks under the bright lights and all that jazz. It's just, it's a story, and it's an interesting story. It could very well be something that happened, but overstating its relevance, I think, is the pitfall. The most relevance of this story involving Deontay Wilder is it allows you insight into the mindset of the aforementioned parties. It allows you insight into Shelly Finkel's mind, Dillian Whyte's mind, and I dare say Deontay Wilder's mind. Because he didn't line himself up for any of the belts that Vladimir was holding, and he was holding 3 of them. He lined himself up for the one belt that Vladimir wasn't holding.
Ain't that a bitch?
I think it's safe to say that if it happened this way, it was by design. Dillian Whyte is circulating this story yet again to attack Deontay Wilder's character, because he feels that Deontay Wilder is a coward, that he's protected, that he's being guided, and all this stuff you see from Wilder, this theatricality, this regalia, this showmanship. It's all a facade.
Bullshit!
To Dillian, Deontay Wilder is nothing more than the guy that Vladimir Klitschko knocked out in sparring, that he's still the same flawed fighter that he always was, and it's only a matter of time before Dillian gets his hands on him and knocks him out. That's Dillian's perspective. That's his view of it. That helps to explain everything we've been seeing involving the aforementioned parties last couple of years.